And I'd like to thank you all for joining us and welcoming our current resident artist, Jodie Maurer. And her paintings are hanging in our hallways. If you walk down the ramp and turn to the right and look left, you will see her beautiful works of art. So I would like to now turn it over to Jodie so she can tell us more about herself and how art inspires her and how she gets her inspiration.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. My name is Jodie Maurer. I'm from Kansas, but I moved to Missouri when I was about 16 to go to school at Principia, and this has been my home base for a while now, Missouri. I paint in oil, watercolor, and acrylic, and my style relates with abstract impressionistic painting, and I've been painting since I can remember, but more consistently since 2010. One of the golden threads I've learned through my painting experiences is that art is an expression of God's love for us all. I was going through my art journals in preparation for this talk, and in 2012 I found this thought that I had December 19th, 2012. As an artist, I have a universal language, and love is the basis of it. I paint what's beautiful to me about the land and share it. The beauty, expression, and genuine character of each painting speaks directly to the individual and empowers them by bringing native qualities to thought, propelling thought Godward. So I thought that was a sweet reminder of what the whole purpose of painting is about bringing qualities to thought and through an expression of the landscape, largely is what I do. I page tab some of these pages, and I'll pass this around, and you can look through the sketchbook. There's a photo album being passed around too. We'll make sure everyone gets a chance to see this. So here I am. This is on one of my road trips in Utah painting. I'm so excited to share with you my journey as an artist. It all started when I was growing up in Overland Park, Kansas, and given my very own studio, little art room in the basement by my mom and dad. They had no rules for me down there, and so I could experiment and explore with all the mediums and the paints. Some of my best memories were having my friends over and doing the craft projects there together. We even painted the walls. One of my favorites was when we painted the walls with fish and whales and just sort of had fun together and signed it with our handprints. Anyways, it was there in my art room that I developed a love for painting. It came to me naturally. Mom and Dad provided me with all the tools and the opportunities possible to explore my art. Mom would drop me off at art project locations like Paint Me Pottery, where you could just sit for hours and paint, and then come pick me up. I got lost in the creative process, just enjoying creating and working with the paint and other mediums. I sold my first painting to a close family friend in 3rd grade and started having art shows shortly after in our home living room. We'd invite everyone we knew. It was so fun for me to share my art with others. At 13, I had one of my first public shows downtown in Starbucks, and I could go on, but let's skip ahead to college. Here's one of my self-portraits I did in college. This was an interesting painting process where I actually painted, I was studying Chuck Close at the time. He's a known American artist, and he paints sort of in a grid style. So you can see the grid lines on here. I actually had this canvas upside down in the studio, and I was painting it upside down, square by square, so I wouldn't get too focused on thinking of painting an eyeball and what I thought the shape of an eyeball was, but instead, or the nose or the earring. Instead, I was thinking more about the values in that grid and that square and trying to block them in. And do you see that bright orange square at the bottom right? So the underpainting of this whole thing was those bright, intense colors, and then I went over on top of it, did the more natural colors, and I left that one orange to sort of remind me of the process. Okay, and then next is the sycamore tree. I did a series of sycamore trees in school, And I was just so in love with the change, the camouflage of that bark going from white to dark and the movement there and going up the tree. I graduated from Principia College in 2011 with a BA in fine art. And two of my major painting lessons from college include, first, don't be intimidated by a white canvas. As an artist, starting might be difficult if we're too concerned about making every mark perfect on the canvas at all times. My teacher literally stepped on his art paper to prove this point, that it's not a delicate process perfect from start to end. It made me feel that the canvas is not something to be worshipped. It's a tool to communicate with, and it's on my side. I don't actually go out and step on my canvases, but it helped me not be intimidated or fearful of starting a new painting. The second major lesson was paint, paint, paint. It's all about the practice of painting. This takes off the pressure of feeling that I need to make my best painting every day, which of course I hope I do, but the goal is to keep up the practice and discipline of the focus in my craft of painting and remaining committed to it. I think we can all relate with things in our lives that we really want to pursue and be good at and study. Maybe the study of Christian Science. It's all about that practice of committing to it, and I found that with my painting. So the first lesson, don't be intimidated, and the second one, paint, paint, paint. These two lessons were critical for me moving forward. In short, don't be intimidated and never stop painting. After college, here's one of my palettes set up on the rocks, and it's always fun to take pictures of your palettes and see what colors come, and sometimes they're better abstract paintings than I could actually do if I was trying. Here's another sycamore tree that I revisited after college to build it up more and stronger from that series that I was working on. Let's see here. After college, I traveled cross-country multiple times, painting national and state parks, participating in painting events, and having art shows. I felt it was important to me to explore and discover the country and the land on my own, and paint them to really get to know the landscape. One of my first adventures was a local St. Louis competition where I got first place in the professional contest of plein air painting. And I told my art teacher about this, and he told me that judges are never right. So I thought, he didn't want me to get caught up in winning something. And I realized that this really impressed upon me that I'm not painting to please others or for a judge, but to express and communicate the beauty and feeling of the landscape. And it turns out that one judge in particular he painted in a similar style of, and so maybe that's why he was drawn to mine. But a good lesson for me, nevertheless. Okay, so off to Maine. I packed up the car and went out to Maine. When you're looking for a spot to paint, it's always exciting. Something will just strike you about the landscape. And here, this is in Stonington. I was staying with my art teacher's mom in Stonington, Maine, and art teacher from college. And so I hiked out to the beaches here in Deer Isle and Stonington, and the tide is about 12 feet, maybe it's more than 12 feet. I can't remember, but it was a very dramatic tide. So to go out, way out, and you see all these rocks, and then as it comes in, it just gets covered with the water and the reflections. And so that's what my painting setup might look like. That same beach, I did these birch trees. I'm guessing they're birch trees. I have a affinity for white trees. I just love painting them. Here's a collage of my painting trips out west in Utah and different state parks I went to. So I'll leave this page up. So some of the challenges that come when you're not in school anymore. Well, you have no teacher to direct you on how to finish a painting or how to know if it's done or not. Luckily, I took an independent study class, sort of, at school, and it prepared me for working outside of the school environment. Teachers demanded me to think through artistic issues on my own and practice solving them without their help. So in Utah, I had no one to critique my work, and so I'd set them all up in this small apartment I had and just stare at them during the day or the week and just see what came to me about them. This was an interesting process because at the beginning you get really attached to your paintings, and after a while I got past that attachment for each painting and became willing to see how they could be improved. So this was one of my Utah paintings set up there. Here's another one I was critiquing in my little apartment, in the tree. And eventually I grew the courage and the willingness to take them back out, to take these paintings back out on location and rework them. So here's a collage of my Utah paintings from that period right after college.
You have to go somewhere here in town with that.
Plein air painting. Plein air means painting outside, it's French. And I love painting on location, outside directly in front of the landscape. In front of that scene that really inspires me and moves me. It's an exciting adventure. In Utah, this is out in Utah, I was consistently called by the white cliffs. You can see those white cliffs out there, same location, just different day of painting. The way the lighting worked on them making a dynamic scene grabbed my attention. And I'd often pull over the side of the road and paint the same cliff on different size canvases.
So is this not Utah?
This is out in Utah, Escalante, Utah. Yes.
Are you painting on unstretched canvas there?
Unstretched canvas. I didn't have a way to transport stretched canvas at this time, so I would just put it in top in the car.
Did you like that? Unstretched?
It's not as taut, so it's harder to work on for me. Yeah, I think but then I didn't know the difference. I was just excited to be painting. There's my car behind me. That's the painting on the ground, and here it is up. And so you can see well, you can't really see my car, but it's just a CRV. And there's little kids' feet in there. The family, I met this wonderful family while I was working at National Park Bryce Canyon, and they let me come stay with them after my job there. And their kids, you can see his black shoe. They're the ones taking pictures of me. And they'd come out and paint with me and show me some neat local scenery to go painting. Next. So this is also in Utah during sunset. It got very cold and it snowed, but you can see 6 little 20 by 24 inch canvases down there. So it's about over almost 2 by 2 feet. And I
paint in the cold.
paint in the cold. The paint would get really stiff and hard to work with when you're in the cold, and that was the big challenge of that. My dad gave me all his old gear for winter, and so I just wear all his gear so I'd stay warm and paint out there. Here's another Utah scene. This is during the time when I was starting to transition from, I saw a big movement in my style and observing the colors and trying to get the colors more specific and accurate to what the landscape was telling me.
Didn't the paints get too stiff for you to?
They were very stiff, and I just had to push and make them stick on the canvas when I was painting in the
Did you
winter.
work with other than a brush?
I had to work with, here's my palette. You can see my palette here. I used a knife, a palette knife, and I'd scoop it up and spread it on the canvas and get it to stick. Yeah, good questions.
Did you have to water it down?
You can't. I didn't use water, but this was oil-based oils, and no, I didn't use any water. I just used the paint straight out of the tube for all these paintings. Colorado.
That's the Aspens.
Yes, there's the aspen trees.
Pretty.
Rocky Mountain National Park. Have you all been there, anyone?
Oh,
yeah.
I've been to Yellowstone.
Good, good. Yeah, I hope to go back. That was not as simple as pulling the car over and stopping to paint. I had to hike in my paint gear for most of these paintings in the Rocky Mountains. I did a lot of watercolors here, so I didn't do many oils there. I had a fascination there with the trees and the reflections. This is out, if you have been there, it's, I think it's called Rim Road, where you're just driving on the top and you just see all the mountain peaks in the distance. Next one is, I think that's Bear Mountain, and reflecting. And here's an aspen tree here. The white trees, I love painting sycamores, birches, aspens. They just remind me of the Christ idea, just pure and striking, beautiful and uplifting. And the way the tree sort of draws your eye upward, that always reminds me of how the Christ is lifting our thoughts Godward. So another reflection. And then all those aspen trees with the mountains in the distance. And then I had a show at Artichokes in Kansas, a gallery in Kansas, and you can see those same paintings framed in the background and one of my oils from Utah on the ground. And here's a collection of the oils there.
Do you play music while you're painting?
I usually don't, especially if I'm on location. I just want to be so a part of the scene and what I'm feeling and in tune with what's going on around me with the sun, the movement, the shadows, and what's grabbing me about the landscape.
That's music.
Where is that one?
Yeah, that's the music. This is Santa Fe, New Mexico. So I went out there. JoJo O'Keefe is this is her hometown for painting, and she was someone I studied when I was growing up. I would copy her artwork and flowers, and I wanted to go see Abiquiu, and so I went out there. And there's these spectacular colors in the canyon walls. I was sleeping in the car for a couple nights there, and you can see my little car down there. There's snow out there, so that didn't last long. It was way too cold.
Is it not easier to paint when it's hot or when it's cold?
Easier to paint when it's warmer because the paint doesn't get as stiff.
Did you actually do any traveling in warmer weather, or was it all cold?
Yeah, in the beginning it was mainly the fall, winter, and spring, because that summer I worked at a camp. Yes, that's a good pattern, yeah. Eventually I made my way up to Vermont to visit my Aunt Cindy, and I did a painting trip there. So here I'm up on this cliff that overlooks Lake Champlain, and on the other side of Lake Champlain is the Adirondacks of New York. So that was a beautiful spot to paint. Then I went up to Maine, and that brings me to another one of my favorite parts about plein air painting, the people. You get to meet so many wonderful, incredible people through these trips. While I was painting in Utah, I sold a painting to a man who had a cottage in Maine and invited me to go paint there. So here I am at his cottage. He's in Utah, but he introduced me to the whole community there. And they came over and I was showing them my palette, and the kids were playing with it and did a little art show. So through Roger, I met this whole community of people. I did this wetlands painting up in Maine. Those are trees in the background with the wetlands. And it was fall, so you have those autumn colors. That was done with a paintbrush and oil. Out on location at a historic site in Maine, Kittery, Maine.
Did you ever meet Rob Daisy?
Rob Daisy, I haven't met him.
You should.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Then I went out to Colorado, and this is Colorado Springs, Colorado. One of my favorite stories here. I was driving to Buena Vista, Colorado to work a program, and I stopped here on my way to paint at Garden of the Gods. And I had just driven from St. Louis to Kansas to Garden of the Gods that day, or within the 2 days. And as I was painting that afternoon, Brenda came walking by. And she loved the painting and bought it, and then invited me over for dinner and offered me a place to stay. And we've been good friends ever since. And her husband Peter and Brenda, we go hiking together, and they let me come paint. Very sweet and fun. How you don't always plan these things; they just happen. It's very exciting. Then I went off to let me show you some of these. Garden of the Gods. They had these incredible spires in the background that shoot up out of the ground. It's right by Pikes Peak Mountain, which is on the right side of us, of the screen, I guess, on the right side. Here I am, that's Garden of the Gods in the background. And you can see Pikes Peak in the painting. So Garden of the Gods and then Pikes Peak Mountain. And then I went to New York. I got a part-time job in New York that enabled me to paint in the Catskills, the Hudson River, and the Adirondacks. So those are all upstate mountains of New York. And here I am in the Catskills doing the waterfalls. I had to hike into those waterfalls, paint them, and then hike those out. And those are big canvases. So you're always careful when you're hiking through the woods with those so you don't get them scratched up. Okay, and then while I was, and then I started my flag series. I'll tell you more about that, but, so they're very thick impasto flags that just have an interesting dimension to them. Let me explain why I paint them the way I do. The flag of the United States of America, to me, is a really great reminder of the progress that USA stood for when it was founded as a more perfect union in 1776. So I paint the American flag large and bold with oil paint and thick impasto strips as a symbol of the strength and courage that gave birth to our nation. Unbound by tyranny, these flags are a reminder that united this nation stands. One of the things I enjoy about these is how the colors sort of go from, like you can see this yellow gold that goes into the red and the white, and the red and the white and the blue. Sometimes they sort of mix together, and that to me is an expression of the unity that is going on, that we're all the colors are needed to make up this flag, and they blend together. C. Parker Gallery. I got into a couple galleries when I was in New York working. The first one I'll talk about, C. Parker. This was a fun little adventure. I left the Greenwich, Connecticut church one Sunday morning and said, I'm going to go look at these galleries. And I introduced myself to this one, C. Parker Gallery, and heard back from the owner, and she invited me to show my patriotic flags there and some landscapes. And so here we are. This is probably 4th of July or Memorial Day, but she has 2 of the 4 by 5 foot flags hanging in the window there. And then you can see one inside the gallery. This painting she also took, and that sold within a week. This was of Greenwich, Connecticut Beach, Todd's Point there, just right down the street from the gallery. It's the fields with the ocean sort of mixing together in bright colors. Okay, and then I got into Stone Harbor, New Jersey, Beacon Art, and this was a 3-hour drive from where I was working in New York, so I decided I needed more space for my paintings, and so I bought a trailer. And in that trailer, you can see several shelves. These shelves in the back here hold about 4-foot painting lengthwise and 36 inches on the width. And so I could fit either multiple small paintings in there or one really big one. And I drive that trailer down to Stone Harbor, New Jersey, and paint on the beach all weekend, see how many I could do, and then go home and wait for them to dry and deliver them to the gallery. So you can see the water crashing up on the shore over here with the boulders in there. And then I started doing plein air painting competitions up in the Adirondacks of New York.
You always do it on the ground instead of on a,
I usually have an easel. Sometimes I don't have one. I don't know why that is. Good question, Phyllis. Maybe.
On the trailer, huh?
What? Oh, yeah, the trailer. There's easels in the trailers too.
are these brush and palette knife?
This one is palette knife. Some of these are brushes. I'll tell you when I see a brush, but you can see me holding a palette knife and all the palette knives on the grass right here. And there's my big palette and the little palette knife I hand. Yeah, I did this for, let's see. Oh yeah, I painted mountains here and boulders. Here, this one you had to hike in about 20 minutes to get to this one spot on Barnum Creek Trail in the Paul Smith College, this whole wetlands area. And so I hiked in 20 minutes. That's a 2x4 foot painting, and then I had to hike out just very carefully again, trying not to scrape it. People would hike by and they loved the trail so much, and they'd be drawn to the style. And sometimes I'd sell a painting just right off the easel. It was very exciting. So the family well, there's that same painting up close. You can see the boulder. I had so much fun with the reflections in this. So here's the boulder here, and then you see the trees broken up in the reflections down here. And then there's the Mount Regis in the background. Another spot, Cascade Pass in the Adirondacks, has this great lake with big boulders in it, and I had to hike down into this grassy area of boulders and paint there. There's that painting up close. And the family I was staying with had this great garden of just all these colors and flowers I was just so drawn to. I love painting the abstract rhythms of these flowers, and art is a lot like music, that the notes are the colors and the spacing of the elements like the stems and the buds and the blossoms provide rhythm. My Sunday school teacher loved this one. She bought this one. And then here's Connecticut. No, this is upstate New York stone, the Adirondacks. The little architecture peeking through here. So a family I met invited me over to paint in their backyard, and I love the scene of the blue shed or the blue house next door peeking through the garden. This was a 3x4 foot painting. This is done by paintbrush, almost all of it, and then just down here at the end, I needed to get some thick texture in with these flowers that I used the palette knife on. So you can sort of see the softer brush strokes at the top and around it, and then the thickness at the bottom. Here's a palette on location. Letchworth State Park is in New York, upstate New York. And here's one of my palette photos of just the paints, the colors, and it's sort of fun to look at. Letchworth State Park is called the Grand Canyon of the East. It has this huge river that flows through it with 3 waterfall sections. So I painted each one. This is a historic bridge that I think they took down shortly after I painted it. Here it is on location. You can see the waterfall in the background there in the top photo. You can see a train going over the bridge in the top photo. Yeah, and the palette, and it sort of invites you in these photos to pretend, see what it feels like painting on location. Here's a same waterfall just further down the trail. And you can see the waterfall on the bottom photo and the palettes.
So Jodie, when you're doing that one and you want to do all 3,
Yeah.
Are you doing 1 in a day, 2 in a day?
Usually 1 in a day, sometimes 2 in a day.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I might revisit the paintings later on. Oh, this one was so cool. I was painting this, and this hot air balloon comes soaring down the riverside, and then it just drops and follows the draft of, I guess, the waterfall. I don't know the science of it, but and then they just keep going along the river. But it was so unexpected to see that huge hot air balloon coming down. And so that was a fun experience. And you get the spray of the falls while you're sitting there painting or standing there painting. Then I went up to Maine. Let's see. Okay, these are just highlights now of my painting. I did this same lighthouse about 20 times, different colors. So we have daytime, and then maybe this was evening or sunrise.
Which one is that?
Hendricks, this is Booth Bay Harbor, Maine, Hendricks Cove Lighthouse. Yeah. And the lady that lives right in front of this lighthouse, I'd gone there 2 or 3 times, and then the third time I went there, she just loved watching me paint. She came and got one of the paintings at the art event.
Now, did you paint different styles with the different times you were there?
Good question. I think so. Usually it's just sort of evolves. This was done maybe 2 years ago. This one was done last year. So
Did you paint Niagara Falls too?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you paint Niagara Falls too?
I did. I don't have a picture of Niagara
I
Falls.
think
But,
it's down there.
oh, you're
I
right.
think I saw
Yes. Niagara Falls is showing in the show.
I've seen it.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah.
Niagara Falls.
Yeah, it's a different style. Here we are on Grimes Cove in Booth Bay Harbor, Maine. And you can see the paintings on location with the boulders. That's a hike too. But during these events, all the artists are hiking out all over the coast and just painting together. And you walk around and you see other artists out there painting, and we critique each other. And that's some of the ways I learned a lot was from watching these other artists. I did a farmer's market competition. This is sort of it's funny because there's a girl in the flowers. It was at the farmer's market. There was this booth of flowers all set up, and I asked a lady, a girl, if she would pose for me, and I could paint her in with the flowers. And I got best of show for this painting. The judge liked the thickness and the texture of the paint, and was just, I guess, drawn to the immediacy and rawness of it. Here I'm representing in Stone Harbor, New Jersey, the art gallery, Beacon Art, and just painting at a street fair, and people come by and
Do you have trouble painting with people watching you or not?
no, I enjoy it. I just stay focused on it, and yeah. More of the aspen trees that I enjoy painting. I was studying an artist, I can't remember her last name, but it was Melissa, and she does these great aspen trees with pops of colors all around, and so I took that idea and ran with it, and I hope to do more of those. This is our local Straubs on Clayton Road in Mason, and I did this for one of those art competitions and got 3rd place with this one. And then my mom and I went out to Utah together. I almost put a picture of you in here, Mom. But you didn't, right? But I didn't. This is a delicate arch. It's a 1.5 mile hike from the car to get there. And so I hiked out there with a heavy bag full of paint, so I wouldn't have to go back for any extra colors. And then this is done with paintbrush. You can see the brush strokes. I did 4 small paintings, about 11 by 14, while I was there. And each one probably took a little over an hour, maybe around an hour. And I was studying the shadow of the arch. So if you watch that shadow of the arch as we go to the next one, you'll see how it changes. And I was studying the warmth in the shadow and trying to, I was just trying to be more realistic with all the colors all around. Here it is again. There's delicate arch. You can see the mountains in the background. So Utah is just incredible landscape with all the layers of the rocks and the mountains. Here I am. That's my dad's outfit. He gave me a big heavy rain gear and all the stuff. It was so cold out there in Utah that I just needed to bundle up, and then I'd go out, do all these little paintings. I found a
So
lady.
this is in winter?
What?
This is winter?
This is winter again. Yeah, we're back to winter.
Did your paint stiffen?
The paint stiffened, yes, but it probably wasn't 30-degree weather. It's probably more 40 degrees, so it was a little bit more easy to handle.
I knew one lady that said she was trick-or-treating for Halloween. And she had to bundle it up for winter.
Trick-or-treating for Halloween, she had to bundle up for winter.
She's from there.
Oh, in Utah, yeah. It gets cold in Utah. Yeah, that was fun. Another Fisher's Hook here. This is more summer weather. I have flip-flops on. I'm preparing my palette there. This is Moab, Utah. It's interesting painting. I think I got second place with this when my mom was with me at the show. This was one of those plein air paint the towns, and so you can see the town, the little figures in the foreground, and then the orange rock, and then the blue mountains, LaSalle Mountains of Moab in the distance. Then I stopped traveling for a while, and I painted at home from some pictures in my studio. I did, this was back in St. Louis, so I painted Colorado pictures at home. And I studied Monet. This is one of Monet's, I studied Monet. This is my painting, but I copied his painting. And I was drawn to the movement of the water and the light on the rocks. This was a photo. I painted this from a photograph from the Stone Harbor, New Jersey gallery. This is called Supermoon. In real life, you can see the moon a lot clearer in the painting. Here's the moon right there. And I loved that beach and the movement of the water.
How big is that painting?
It's probably 2.5 by 7 feet. That's so longer than this screen here. Pretty big.
Did you stretch your own canvas to get that size?
No, this was a pre-ordered canvas that I had in storage. This was an ordered canvas in storage.
You ever paint over a painting you didn't like with another painting?
Occasionally,
Yeah.
because my paint's so thick that it's hard to paint over it because then the texture from the first painting shows through, unless I sanded it or
You
something.
get some interesting texture that way.
Yeah, there's already a lot of texture. Yeah. So this is done at Queenie Park here in St. Louis, right off of Clayton and Mason Road. And I was drawn to these daffodils here, where with the tulip tree above them, those pink-purple petals fell and covered the ground. And then these daffodils just look so happy with the pink and purple contrast with the green and the rolling hills in the distance. Do you guys know where this is?
Yes.
St. Louis Art Museum, so Art Hill. I was painting this on location a couple years ago. And this one I do have showing here, right down the hallway. Yeah. The water fountains were so exciting to paint in this, and I did this thing where I outlined a lot of it in this purple magenta color, and then I blocked in all the real colors. In that top one, you can see some of that purple magenta just sort of dabbled around, blocking in the landscape.
Where was this?
This was in St. Louis, Art Hill, St. Louis Art Museum. I started doing dog portraits. That's Lucy and Matilda. Lucy and Matilda, the dogs. So that was a fun new branch to explore with my painting, different from landscapes. And it's very fun because the owners will say, well, I really want the eyebrows to stick out, or they know what they love about their dog. And so it's sort of a joint process when you're doing a dog commission for someone. They would tell me what spoke to them, and I included the painting. And here are the sunflowers. They started doing this year. Just having fun, having the sunflowers dance across the painting is sort of what I was thinking, and an aqua color in the background.
Did you do more than the two that were here?
Yes, think about 5 of them, or 4 or 5. This is blossoms done at Queenie Park. So I was just enjoying the interplay between the blossoms and the blue sky and the branches. Here it is on location. Sort of fun to see where you were painting it. I have a video of the whole painting process for this one on my website. And then most recently I've been studying Tom Thompson, a Canadian artist, and I've been sort of reading and looking at his paintings and then making my own from them and using the same, just trying with my own technique to see what it would look like. So those are my highlights. Ultimately, this painting journey so far has taught me that art's an expression of God's love for man, and that the beauty and soulfulness of a landscape brings a feeling of joy and peace or adventure to me that I work to convey through the paintings. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I do have a time-lapse video of the painting process, which I was showing on your way in if you'd like to see that. Yeah, so maybe Lisa, you can direct me on what to do next.
Oh, I think that's wonderful, and if you want to play the time lapse on the bill, if anybody has any questions.
So Jodie, out of 7 days, do you feel like you pretty much paint 5?
When I'm in the painting groove, it's at least 5, sometimes 7, and I usually start out the morning just doing some quiet study time, and then I just jet out to location and paint until sunset, or fit a run in there. But yeah, at least 5 days a week.
I love how it's like this is my view. I didn't know your mom was here, but I have to say, I was going to say this from the beginning when you described your story. I love your parents, that they set up that room for you and they let you do your thing. Like totally honoring the child and the child's talent. And it's like, to me, what you just described, it's so moving because it's like this constant ministry of inspiration. Okay, I'm going to go outside, I'm going to be with these people, I meet these people, I'm going to stay overnight with them, they want to buy a painting, you know, their kids want to touch the paint, whatever, it's so beautiful, and you go everywhere, inside, outside, and it's lovely.
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome, oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Really beautiful.
You're welcome here.
Thank you. Deb, yes.
You mentioned that sometimes you use watercolor and sometimes other times you use oil base.
Yes.
And when you arrive at the scene, does something strike you in particular that drives you one way or the other?
That is a great question. When I first started out after college, I was under this regimen of structure of doing oil today, watercolor tomorrow, oil, watercolor, and I just switch off. And then once I started getting into galleries, the first gallery loved the watercolors, but then they would only want oils, and so oil paintings were one on that side, but I've started getting back into watercolors, and I'm very excited about
Do you
trying
have
that.
a favorite?
Between watercolor and oil, I just love painting.
So Jodie, in one of the photos, I don't know if it was in the journal, it was in the photo book,
Oh,
in one of those, with your stash, there was a box of colored pencils.
oh, really?
So do you sometimes
I
fool
don't.
around, or?
Not usually, no. I wonder where that was. The box of colored pencils. You're very observant, Susan. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Maybe I in my sketchbook, I might have sketched with them. Yeah, this was an interesting trip up in Vermont. I had my oils with me. Did anyone not get to see my little sketchbook here? Do you want to see it, Mark?
Thank you.
Thank you. I was painting with oils and I ran out of white paint. So, if you run out of white paint with oil paint, it's trauma. It's just you don't know what to get. So I started leaving canvas blank and just using the canvas as the white, and it had very intense bright colors because I couldn't calm them with the white paint. So that was a fun experiment. But those watercolors with the colored pencils, those were, watercolors.
So, Jodie, you don't have a preference of oil necessarily or watercolor?
Not really. I guess I do love painting oils and landscapes. Going back to your question, Phyllis, too. I do like doing oils with landscapes, but there's something so freeing about watercolor that I really am moved by and trying to get back into it. Yeah. Yes, Bill.
Ever been to Texas in the springtime with the wildflowers?
I would love to do that. I haven't yet. I've only been there in the winter and I painted some cactus and that was fun. But wildflowers, that would be incredible. Yeah.
We have a cottage on Lake Winnipesaukee, and we had an artist come there, and he went out in the rowboat and painted on the lake itself.
So Phyllis said that they have a cottage in Lake Winnipesaukee, and an artist would come out on a rowboat when they were visiting and paint out on the rowboat in the lake.
Would you do that?
I would love to do that. That sounds fun. Maybe with the watercolors. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mim.
You should look up Robert Daisy.
Rob Daisy, is he a relative?
He's not a blood relative.
No, okay. Rob Daisy. Okay, I will look up Rob Daisy.
And what's this?
So Jody, what's next?
Oh, thank you.
What's next? Thank you, Suzette.
If you call Rob Daisy, he would take you all over the ocean islands.
Okay, Rob.
They're in Yarmouth,
Yeah.
Yarmouth, Maine, and they've got a place on Boston, so he would totally take you in a boat around wherever you
Oh,
want.
wow.
Yeah, Mim's son-in-law.
Oh, thank you, Viv. Well, maybe you can introduce me. That'd be great.
Yes.
Thank you.
He'll take you anywhere.
Yeah.
That'll be
area.
What's next? 2019, I'm lining up different art events, painting contests, and right now I'm thinking through where I want to go paint that I haven't been before. So what comes to mind is, the Glacier National Park in Yosemite. Have you been there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will love Glacier.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all great, but
Yellowstone. Good call, Bill. Yes. Yes, haven't been there yet.
Now, Jody, are there galleries that represent, what galleries represent you?
So Steve Parker Gallery in Greenwich, Connecticut.
So do you still funnel stuff to them?
Yes, and they mainly take flags right now.
Awesome.
Beacon Art in Stone Harbor, New Jersey. I was there just a couple months ago doing a painting event, and they took up. So they'll take in new work, and if something hasn't sold, then we swap it out.
Switch it out. Yeah.
And then Colorado Springs, Brenda, the lady I met in Colorado Springs that I was talking about, she introduced me to the gallery, and so I show some work there too. Yeah.
So about, ballpark, about how many flags have you painted?
Oh my goodness, that's challenging.
30, 50, 100?
Okay, let's see. I'll go with 30.
Okay, and about how many have you sold?
I don't know.
20? 10?
Okay, maybe I should go down lower. Maybe 20. Let's say I painted 20 of them.
20 flags.
And then maybe, I don't know, 12?
Yeah.
13? I don't know.
Yeah.
Good question. I need to do more statistics.
I love them.
Thank
I
you.
mean, I love it all, but, yeah.
The IRS is here, so be careful.
Yeah.
That's right, Mark. Mark knows.
Yeah, the IRS.
You take
No,
orders.
it's great.
You take orders from people that
Do I take orders of specific scenes? Yes. I do commissions. I did one this past year. This lady had a backyard view in New Jersey, and she wanted that particular bridge to be painted. And so I worked on that, and then she said I want it more silver, more bright or something, and I went back to it and made it. What was the other question? Yes? In the back?
Yeah, have you been to Grand Canyon?
I've been there. I haven't. I want to go there and paint. I've only driven through.
Where was that?
Grand Canyon.
Oh,
Grand Canyon.
That would be great.
That
You
would
ever
be
been to the Yellowstone Park?
I haven't been to Yellowstone.
Go.
thank you.
That's on the list for next year. I'll report back.
So what art events for next year? Where
Uh,
are they?
I
Any plein air contests or?
Yeah, the ones I know of the most are the ones I've done before, and I might revisit those in Utah, and then upstate New York and Adirondacks, and then Maine. Those are there's a couple in Utah and a couple in those different areas, but I'd like to spread out and find new ones to start with, yeah.
Do you like buildings?
Buildings, I've done a couple buildings, but yeah, I'd like to get more into that. Here's probably one of my better building pictures.
Go call Rob Tasing and he'll take you to the islands and houses.
Okay, islands and houses in Maine. Thank you. Thank you.
Also Monet's garden in France.
Yes.
You'll get there and you'll say, I don't know how to paint this.
Thank you. Well, that sounds fun. Have you been to France?
Often.
Okay.
And I love painting that garden. And it's different in the spring, summer, and fall. The professionals come from all over the world to change that garden and take out the pinks and the lavenders in the spring, and then you get into the yellows, and then by the time, it's different every time you go, and it's immaculate. And there are armies of people who deadhead the garden every morning before it opens.
Wow.
So put that on your to-do list.
Okay, Monet's garden.
I'd love to see what you do with that.
Okay, thank you. Good idea.
Do you ever teach?
Do I ever teach? I've done workshops at camps, and I think that's about it. Yeah, it's fun though. It's fun doing that, yes. Yeah. Good.
Well,
Have you
they're
been to-
beautiful paintings.
Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you, Lisa.
I mean,
So fun.
outstanding. I mean, I feel like I could say that coming from an artist family. And I never get tired of looking at them. The one I want, I'm putting a sticky bag together.
Thank you,
But
Lisa.
they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I often go down at night and just wheel down and just kind of sit in front of them.
Oh,
It's really fun.
thanks, Suzette.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you
I'm
for.
so glad they're being used.
Oh yeah, it's delightful. And then I know when one's, I'm like, oh, she must have sold one. It's gone. I mean, it's something else.
Those are
Do you go back and paint over your paintings, earlier paintings?
I haven't. No, I haven't.
I was wondering about, you sometimes use the knife and the brush, and I was wondering what motivates you, or which do you prefer?
Yeah.
And just a little talk about that, because I'm kind of
Good
curious
question.
about that myself. So.
Yeah, okay, when do you use a brush or a palette knife? This one was brush. In that mindset, I was doing a competition, and I think I was thinking more of control and getting the colors as exact as I could, and for some reason that day, with the architecture, I was moved to use a brush. I thought that would help me. These were brushes too, and I was also thinking of control and color focus, more color study with those. Let's see where your knife is. I think, yeah, these are knives here. They're a little bit bigger, so sometimes with the canvas, I don't have an exact answer, but sometimes it's, let's see, I think I wrote something about that. It's about how the landscape, a feeling you get from it, and what tool you want to pick up. I just don't know. Sometimes it's about having more control, but I can do that with palette knives if they're smaller too. And sometimes I just need to be able to scoop up a lot of paint to get the idea out faster or something. And sometimes I can do that with a brush, but
Is there, between the two different techniques, is a little bit of cross-fertilization of your thinking then, in terms of, then when you go work with a brush, does something that you worked with the palette knife kind of
yeah.
influence the using the brush, or back and forth? you know, like going between watercolor and oil or something, you know, there's always a little bit of, well, you can do this and you can't do that, and
Yes.
and then kind of informing, one informs the other. I was just wondering if the knife and the brush kind of works that way too.
Yeah, the questions about using a knife or a brush and how the different techniques between the two, how they inform each other. Because with a brush, you can do more layering and go back to it. With a knife, when you layer, you blend the colors too. And I think it's something I'm wanting to learn more about, and I just haven't tapped into all of it yet. It might just be a little bit subconscious right now,
Yeah.
just intuition.
Well, that seems to make sense to me too, but I was just kind of curious how much it kind of comes to your consciousness a little bit as you're choosing one or the other, you know.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea for me to start journaling about. Often when you're painting, you do the painting and then you reflect on it and you write down what happened during this painting. You might have seen that in my art journal I passed around. And so as I reflect on it, I find I learn a lot about it, and I'll start doing that with the paintbrush and palette knife techniques to see why it is I'm compelled to use one or the other.
In your journals, like going back like 10 years and then maybe you read an entry 5 years ago, and then, do you find that unknowingly you tend to be working with the same kinds of things come up in your journal in terms of questions that you're thinking about, or do you find that your focus changes, that over time it's a different story in a sense, the more recent journal versus the older entries?
Yeah, I love that question. If you didn't hear, is there something going on with the microphone?
No, you're okay.
Okay.
Sensitive to your fingers.
Where did you paint this?
Real quick, Pat, sorry. When you're going through your journals from 5 years or 10 years ago, do you notice different notes or different themes than what you're thinking about now? And as I was going through them, I noticed one of them I was talking about the shift of using more control with the colors to, and how that felt was more focus on that than just trying to paint with as many colors as I could, but instead using. And so maybe right now I've been growing in different ways that I haven't had always repeat questions coming through the journals. But that's a really fun, exciting idea to think more about. Thank you.
Do certain landscapes tell you which way to go?
Yes. If I see a waterfall, I'll probably will use. Well, no, I've done waterfall on palette knife and paintbrush. I'm not sure. I think it's something about the mood and how I'm feeling and how the paint's going.
Do you ever sell your palettes?
I want to.
Totally should.
I should, yes. I need to find a way to.
We'll have a palette
display
show.
this.
And do you have a different palette? Like, let's say you do a painting, and so you've had a palette. Do you, because of the things hardening and you can't put the paint back into the tubes, for example?
Yeah.
Do you then does each painting almost have a new palette?
Yeah, maybe every few days I need a new palette, and sometimes I just work on top of that old
put
stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, for the Straubs thing, for example, that's for the day, like that the competition's for the day.
Yeah.
So like, how long do you have to do the painting, and then does it get judged right after that?
Right. So you have about 3 to 4 hours to do a painting,
Okay.
and then the judging happens, and then you come back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful picture up there.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah.
Bill's an artist.
Yes. We have lots of
Pat
artists
is a
here.
budding artist. Phyllis is an artist. Georgia is an artist. Mim is an artist. And we have Beverly Hoffman that is an artist
Yes.
as well.
And Mark
Anybody
Orton.
else? Oh yeah, Mark is here.
Yay, Mark!
Lots
Thanks
of
for
artists here.
coming.
Yes.
He's gracing us with his presence. But anyway, that was fantastic.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming today.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much.
How many of you sold from out here about?
I think about 4 or 5.
Wow.
Yeah, different sizes. Yeah.
I'll tell you from my experience, if you can get water in a picture with reflections, it will help, you know, if you get that kind of a subject. People love to see the reflection of something up here like that. So
I agree, I love
Try it.
reflections. Good idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
again,
you.
Jodie,
Yeah.
that was awesome. And to see some of your other work and
Yes.
this,
You should
you know, your location,
Oh,
that must have been so inspiring.
Thank you.
And do you have some more